The newspapers called it a curse because they did not know what else to call it. When the tomb was opened, no thunder split the sky, no plague swept through the camps. No explorers collapsed screaming beneath invisible hands. The air that rushed out was dry and stale, smelling of old dust and resin, and the men who entered walked back into the sun on their own feet. That was the first mistake. The tomb belonged to Pharaoh Khepri, a ruler of the late dynasties, one whose reign had been unremarkable by history's standards, no great conquests, no pyramids raised in his name. His burial site was modest compared to the giants of the past, hidden beneath a low ridge of stone and sand that centuries had flattened almost to nothing, yet the seals were intact. That alone was enough to draw attention. The expedition consisted of 12 people, archaeologists, laborers, scribes, and guards. They descended together into the earth, lanterns bobbing like captured stars, speaking in hushed tones as if the stone itself might be listening. The corridors were narrow. The walls slanted inward in places, forcing shoulders to brush carved reliefs worn smooth by time. Hieroglyphs covered every surface, prayers, warnings, invocations to gods whose names had fallen out of living memory. One inscription appeared again and again. I do not remain behind. No one could agree on its meaning. They reached the burial chamber by mid-afternoon. The sarcophagus lay unopened, the pharaoh's likeness carved into its lid, eyes wide and watching. Offerings still surrounded it, broken pottery, dried flowers, gold untouched by thieves, a miracle of preservation. They documented everything. They did not open the sarcophagus that day. That night, the first man dreamed of the corridor. He was a junior surveyor, young, eager, sleeping in a canvas tent beneath a sky crowded with stars. In his dream, he stood alone in a narrow passageway, stone walls pressing close enough that he could feel their cold breath against his skin. At the far end stood a doorplane, undecorated, shut tight. He walked toward it. No matter how long he walked, it did not grow closer. He woke gasping, his heart racing, convinced for a moment that the tent walls were closing in. He told no one. By the third night, 5 of them had dreamed it. The corridor was always the same. The walls always moving, inch by inch. The door always present, always unreachable. No voices, no figures. Just the sound of one's own breathing, too loud, too fast. They laughed about it at breakfast, uneasily. Shared dreams were not unheard of, they told themselves. The mind played tricks in strange places. Ancient tombs inspired imagination. The tomb was sealed again 2 weeks later. Artifacts were catalogued and removed. The entrance was reinforced to protect it from looters. The expedition returned home with photographs, sketches, and cautious excitement. Life resumed. The dreams did not stop. Some of the survivors dreamed every night. Others only once a month. A few claimed they never dreamed at all until, years later, they did. The corridor came without warning, slipping into sleep like a memory rather than a nightmare. The walls crept closer each time. Doctors were consulted, sleep specialists, neurologists, psychiatrists. Diagnoses were offered and withdrawn. Stress, trauma, suggestibility. A shared narrative reinforced by early conversations. Pills were prescribed, therapy attempted, nothing changed the dream. What disturbed the physicians most was not the dream itself, but its consistency. The survivors, interviewed separately, described the same dimensions, the same texture of stone, the same suffocating sense of forward motion without progress. Even the sound of footsteps echoed in the same way. More unsettling still was the timeline. The corridor was shortening, not quickly, not dramatically, but imperceptibly, night by night, year by year. The door, once impossibly distant, began to seem closer still, unreachable, but no longer infinite. The survivors aged. One died in a car accident at 43, another from pneumonia in her 60s. A third lived into his 80s, sharp-minded and physically healthy to the end. Their deaths were ordinary, unremarkable, but in the weeks before each death, the dreams intensified. Sleep journals encouraged by researchers revealed the same pattern. The walls pressed tighter. Breathing became difficult even after waking. Some woke with bruises on their arms as if pressed against stone. Others developed a terror of enclosed spaces they had never known before. In their final entries, several mentioned the door. "It's closer now," one wrote. "I can almost touch it." Another wrote only, "I hear something behind it." Public interest flared briefly, then faded. A curse that did not kill spectacularly did not hold attention for long. Skeptics dismissed the accounts as coincidence amplified by myth. Believers argued that the Pharaoh's vengeance was subtle, patient. The truth lay somewhere quieter. One man remained. His name was Elias Morin, the expedition's lead epigrapher. He had been the first to translate the repeated inscription, "I do not remain behind." At the time, he had taken it to mean spiritual transcendence, the soul's refusal to linger in death. Now, in his 90s, he was no longer so certain. Elias outlived them all. His mind stayed clear long after his body began to fail. He moved into a care facility overlooking the sea, where the hallways were wide and the rooms filled with light. He insisted on sleeping with the curtains open. He continued to dream. In his journal, written in a careful, shaking hand, he documented the corridor's progress with academic precision, measurements, estimates, comparisons to earlier dreams. He refused to dramatize, refused to speculate until the last year. "The walls are close enough to touch now," he wrote. "I feel them even when I wake." Nurses noted his increasing agitation at night. He would wake shouting, clawing at the bedsheets, convinced he was being crushed. Scans showed no abnormalities. His heart remained strong. He began refusing to lie flat. "I need room," he told them. "I need space." They moved his bed away from the walls. It did not help. In his final months, Elias stopped dreaming of walking. In the corridor, he could no longer move forward. The walls had narrowed until progress was impossible. The door loomed just ahead, close enough to see the grain of the wood, the imperfections in its surface. Still closed, still silent. "I think," he wrote, "that the corridor is not meant to be escaped." The last entry was dated 3 days before his death. "I am almost at the door." Elias Morin died quietly in his sleep. No autopsy revealed anything unusual. Within a year, the tomb of Keperank was sealed again, this time permanently. The artifacts were returned. The entrance buried beneath reinforced stone and sand. Official statements cited preservation concerns, ethical considerations, respect for the dead. Unofficially, no one wanted to follow. Sometimes, in academic circles, the curse is discussed in careful language. Shared psychological trauma. Cultural contamination of memory. The power of expectation. But there is one detail no theory explains. The inscription, "I do not remain behind," appeared only in corridors leading away from the burial chamber. Never toward it. And in every recorded dream, the door stood at the far end, waiting not to open, but to be reached. As if something, once buried, had been walking forward ever since.